Welcome back to the Lobster Talks podcast, where we celebrate the bold thinkers and innovators driving change in the startup world. I'm your host, Gabriel Jarrosson, still here. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Neha Mittal, the founder and CEO of Just Words. Neha, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm very excited. We were just talking about everything we're going to try to cover into this episode. There's so many things. Stories about YC, stories about co-founders, which those ones are really cool. Stories about what you're building and how unique it is in what might probably appear like a crowded market, but you're actually very different. So let's dive in. Tell us who you are and tell us about Just Words, please.
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Neha. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Just Words. And prior to this, I was heading growth and retention at Pinterest and Twitter for many years. And that's where the idea or the seed of what we're doing came through. So at Just Words, we help scale hyper-personalized messaging. So think emails, push notifications, websites. Instead of just producing lots and lots of content, the idea is how can we make your iteration cycles really quick so you can start to test content, place it in front of users, and auto-refresh it over time. So you're taking care of, obviously, personalization, but also seasonality across macro trends, as well as performance over time in terms of what resonates with your users.
That's awesome. Is it correct you said it in much better words than me, but my brain is very simple. Is it correct if I say it's using AI for A/B testing at scale?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. AI for A/B testing, some people like to call it AI testing, but the idea is to be able to test infinite variations in theory very quickly. And so unlike the traditional A/B test where you do A versus B, you're looking at testing n number of variations at the same time.
And I remember there's a fun story of how this came about. I believe it was Pinterest or Twitter or both, but probably Pinterest.
Yeah, it was at Twitter. And so what was going on was our growth was tanking at some point, and our push notifications team decided to test small copy changes to see if it helps. And a funny thing happened when we changed a notification from Elon tweeted to Elon just tweeted, and that got us 800K users in one experiment.
Wow.
And obviously we're like, there's something in here that we want to explore. But at the same time, that one change took us 3 months to ship. There was a lot of decision making on exactly what copy to use across marketing, product, engineering, and the A/B testing setup would take 3 weeks to get us to the right results. And the other unfortunate part was only 1 in 10 experiments would show us these kind of results. So we knew we need to do a lot more of experimentation. We knew that this is a slow cycle and operationally heavy. So that's why we started automating a lot of this. And so then we were still using basic machine learning to be able to do this. Now with AI, we have tons of supply in terms of content. So we can really marry the two and start to do this infinite content testing.
And that's what you're doing. Didn't you also drive hundreds of thousands of users to Pinterest with some of a similar story?
Exactly, yes. So after Twitter went to Pinterest, exactly the same story. The products were named differently, but they were trying to do the exact same things. So it became very evident that this is a pattern across companies. And I guess funny story also after Twitter, because of the whole Elon acquisition, a lot of my colleagues went to different companies. So all of them had the same story in various different companies. So that was, again, more validation that there's a need for a product like this.
That's amazing. I mean, we don't need to ask you where you got the idea. I mean, it's obvious you did it a couple of times. And with all of your friends struggling, also, I'm sure many potential customers for Just Words. So now I want to probably get to maybe the elephant in the room, maybe to some of the listeners who might be thinking, wait a minute, A/B testing has been around forever. I'm sure Optimizely has an AI thing. And so actually it's not that simple. Can you talk a little bit about, the incumbents, why they're not able to do this, why it's pretty actually complex and you're the one solving for this?
Yeah. So there's 2 types of incumbents. One of the A/B testing tools like Optimizely and Statsic. We actually integrate with them. So we're not trying to reinvent the idea of A/B testing, Statsic calculations, right? And then you've got your ESPs. So these are your Braze and HubSpots of the world, right? Which help you eventually send emails and they help you build these large campaigns. None of them think through, hey, what is the best content that resonates with people, which requires quality, brand management, and so on? how do we place this content in terms of like lots and lots of variants that are shown to different users and cohorts, and then the content is getting auto refreshed. All of that takes a whole new infrastructure you want to build. And that's neither in the strategic roadmap of Optimizely, nor a core value add for like an Iterable or HubSpot. The second thing we do is we're trying to go to a world of user-centric focus rather than campaign-centric focus. So what that means is rather than saying, hey, let's do a campaign for win back or a cross-sell strategy, we're saying, no, we're going to look at every single user, look at exactly what personalization we want to apply to them, and then change content constantly. The reason why other companies won't think like that is because their entire bread and butter is based on building campaigns. So that's a 180-degree shift for them to go into a more user-centric mode. So those are the two core differences where we come in versus the two kinds of.
So I guess it's a perfect segue to talk about what you've built so far. You're a fairly new company. I mean, you're not a couple weeks old, thank God. But talk about what you've built so far, and we can also get into what you're building. What's the vision? Because the possibilities are endless. So let's dive into that.
Yeah. So we started with what we call auto-tune messaging, which is exactly what we discussed, where we could do infinite variations of content. And we started with actually emails and push. So retention channels, where we have a lot of good data to be able to actually move the needle on retention. The next thing we're looking at is also baking in recommendations. So what that means is now I can understand, given where you live, who you are, what your previous product purchases were, I can actually help you understand what is the next best product purchase, for example, for you. What's the next best discount? What's eventually the next best action for you as a user to make sense of our product? So that's the second big bucket that we're exploring. So product recommendations feed directly into auto-tune messaging, which is our core product. And then from there on, the third thing we're looking at is basically out-of-the-box insights. So now that we run infinite experimentation in some ways across channels like emails, websites, and push, we can now generate insights on exactly what's working for your users. So you can not only use them in messaging, but also in all of your other product strategies. So rather than listening to the loudest voice in your room, you can actually look at data and start to come up with meaningful insights on the next best action. So those are sort of the three pillars you think about in our product.
Oh, that's interesting. There's a long way ahead, and both internal potential usage and external. That's really cool as well. I know you're working with some big names. Not sure if you're able to name them here. If you are, let's go for it.
So some of the customers we're working with are Grammarly and BeReal, which is a social media company, just got acquired, actually, French company. So yeah, I guess it's been a great experience, not only because they're amazing design partners. We get so much good feedback, very smart questions. So we're constantly on our feet. And that's what we want from our early customers. The other thing that comes with it is all of these companies have huge volumes of data, which is a requirement for our product to do well, right? But with huge volume comes scale and robust infrastructure. So that's another technical innovation we're constantly thinking about. And the third thing that gives us a lot of value is to see what kind of industries are these, right? So very much consumer companies focused on productivity and social angles. So that again makes our algorithm really good. So yeah, so far it's been amazing to work with these folks.
That's awesome. Congrats. I want to dive into, I guess, something I really wanted to talk to you about today. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you had a co-founder probably before YC or around YC that ended up not staying on as a co-founder. I think he stayed on in the company, but not as a co-founder. And so there you were a solo founder, and now you have a new co-founder who came in. So that's super unusual. And as I was telling you, I like to find the unusual thing and dig in and see what we can learn from that. So would you mind sharing, a little bit of what happened, but mostly what you learned from it? What are the mistakes and that you're trying to avoid, and just the whole story and what we can learn from it?
Yeah. Oh my God. And this is probably the first time I'd be sharing this more openly.
Amazing.
The forum. Well, yeah. So I did have a co-founder, and mid-YC actually, well, like 2 weeks before our fundraise, we figured it's not working, and we had to make this tough decision of all right, let's move in different directions. figure out how we help each other, but most importantly, what happens to the company, right? In that moment, there were a lot of decisions in terms of, hey, should we fundraise first? And that sounded like a bad, dishonest idea in general, if we're already sure that we're not going to work together.
Yeah.
Second, like to sustain the company as a founding engineer, right? And I go and found a co-founder. Or there was, to be honest, an idea of, hey, the company's small enough to shut it down and, figure it out after you figure out if you have a co-founder or not. And I have to say, at that time, YC gave some of the best advice. I have to say the company lives like very much because of them. So a couple of things that Michael Seibel, our partner, shared with us. One was, if it's not working, it's not working. Do not diagnose, right? Like look forward. How do you make it work, right? And what is the best thing for the both of you? The second thing was co-founder is probably one of the most important thing. Your product will change, your idea will change. Your co-founder is somebody who's going to climb the mountains with you and, be with you for the next 10, 15 years. You're going to hate them and love them. That's the kind of person you want to. So it's not, well, what he was trying to say is like, this is not a decision you want to make in 2 weeks to say, make sense of your fundraise or whatever, right? This is a decision that will take time, and that's okay. And you want to figure out if you can still run the ship by yourself in that much time, or you want to pause and figure it out, right? Like totally up to you. And the third aspect was there's two skills you always need so early in the company. One is sales and the other is engineering. Without those two, you cannot build the product and sell it and take it forward, right? So are you willing to be able to manage both of those? So those are sort of the three big questions he had laid in front of me. And it's like, you figure it out
Not
and tell
easy.
me what you want to do.
I didn't want to interrupt you because it's fascinating, but what's your framework? You're faced with all of those decisions, major, you're sort of alone now to take them. What resources, what do you go to? Well, you go to Michael Seibel, and he's an amazing group partner to have. But, at some point the meeting ends and you're alone. What are the mental models or the tools that you use to make such decisions? This is, fascinating.
Yeah. It was more so it's mentally very stressful, right? Like very stressful, because this is one thing that I guess breaks companies completely, right? Like one of the biggest reasons. I think, again, three different things that helped. One was obviously partners, YC partners, but the second one was the founder community. So before I knew it, I realized there were a lot of solo founders in YC, and a lot of them had gone through something similar or they were going through it. And even after I went through it, I still get messages from founders. We have like a solo founder group, right, where we talk about these things. And how do we navigate it? What are the different options? And so it sort of normalizes this in a good way, where it's like, this is not like it's crisis, but it's okay. It happens to so many people. And that in some ways made me stronger and helped me also bond with the community better. So that was a resource. Then I think the one other big resource in this moment was also my family and my partner, right? Like just having my back and them going through like, hey, you can do this by yourself, or, you'll find somebody. That went a long way in navigating this. Yeah. And so honestly, in the end, it was also a little bit about so one other thing that happens is you're talking to so many people and everybody has different ideas on what you should do in this point, right? One good advice I got was you want to listen to your intuition and just follow what your gut is saying and don't look back and don't overthink it, right? And it's funny because in that moment, I was like, I cannot think of doing anything else but this startup. I have no intentions to go back to my previous jobs. I have no intention to shut down the company. So in some ways, I double, triple down on everything, like from tech to sales. So it was almost funny, and people could tell. They're like, where is this weird energy coming from? It's like, it's almost like the founder in crisis trying to I don't know. I didn't personally know that I had it in me before that.
No, when your back is against the wall, that's when everything comes out. That's really cool. And so someone ended up coming in and joining. How did that happen? That's insane. Well, first of all, did you get kicked out of the solo founder group? Because you should be kicked out.
Oh man, I'm not kicked out. I should probably kick myself out.
So tell me what happened with this new guy coming in.
Well, yeah. So this person, Jeff, he and I also worked at Twitter in the past. So he was a colleague. And I knew he'd been working on his own startup. And he had a co-founder breakup or something similar there. So, when this happened, I at least picked up the phone and like talked to him, which I did. Like I called like 10, 15 friends, like, on my list, right? And turns out, his startup was not going in the direction he wanted to. He's looking for something new. And so few things we did up front was, one, being very honest about who we are and how we work. We had both gotten burnt by, not so great relationship. So that really helped. The second thing we did was we both, I told him up front, look, I'm not in a rush. Right? This is a long-term relationship. It's not a fling. So let's take our time. So we took like 3-ish months before we, shook hands and made it official. Which where I guess we're comfortable talking now. And those 3-ish months were amazing for us to understand how we work together, what are our skills, how do we work in stress. And honestly, one of the moments where I felt, okay, this is the right relationship was when it was a very low day for me. Things were going down, nothing was, making sense. And that happens, I guess, a lot. And he could lift the day up, like he could bring the energy up. And also, like he did not only bring the energy up, but also started to contribute in more than what I could have done by myself in terms of the vision of the company. So it all started to make sense in those few months. And if I hadn't given those, building that trust and confidence would have taken a lot longer. So that was sort of our strategy and, worked out perfectly for us, knock on the wood.
That's amazing. I mean, it's what you said. I mean, if you get someone that you can really work with and that shares your vision, that's already like have those two things, probably super rare, but that's probably a good thing to go for. If someone listening to us right now is a solo founder and wants to bring someone in, what would be your advice to make sure it's the right person? You've said that it's, probably work together and vision. But if you don't have a colleague from Twitter, what would be your advice to, try to find that person? Is it just talking to the most people possible, pretty much like you did, or any other thing that you'd recommend?
What I did with a lot of people was to take up small projects. So everybody, like I was talking to, had different skills, different life, different priorities. So what I ended up doing was I picked parts of the projects that I was already doing and I started to experiment on those. Hey, I'm trying to build partnerships with certain companies and you are very good at the business side of things. Let's do that together. Hey, I'm building my pitch deck or like sales deck, right? You're again very good at sales. Let's like work on that together, right? Or if you're an engineer, here's the pilot project. Let's like pair up on that. That really gave us a very good understanding of the styles because it's less about the skills. It's more about can we complement each other? So I really recommend that as the first step. Obviously, you want to work with somebody you know and you've had a relationship with. But the reality is, I heard actually enough stories where people knew each other for 15 years and then they had a bad breakup. And so, right, like I don't think there's a right answer for it, except try it out. And in the end, like follow your intuition. There is an intuition. I think one thing I realized in retrospect was I had that and I wasn't following it enough early on. And so if this is the right person you want to work with or not, and you got to follow that.
That's really cool. I love that. I mean, you learn by doing. Let's just say, just take some small projects and just do them. Plus, you get some free work done for you. Isn't that amazing?
I think another mental state that was very helpful was I decided to basically be in a state of, hey, I can run the company by myself. So it's almost like dating in the sense when you're really trying hard, you don't find the right person. When you're just like, I'm not looking, it just happens before you know it, right? And that took the pressure off. There was no time pressure. There was no pressure for, I need to find the right person right now. And there was also enough confidence that the company moves on no matter what, right? So you automatically put yourself in a position of leverage. It's, I guess, how fundraising works too, right? Like when you're not running with fear, you're doing a lot better.
It's so interesting that you say it's like dating. I make that kind of comparison all the time. It's so weird, but it really works the same way. Even with sales, if you're selling from a point of neediness, the customer can even feel it, or the prospect. But if you're like you said, you're like, I don't need someone to run the business with me. I can do it on my own. Exactly and like you say, I don't need to be dating. I can, I'm happy to be single. We all know those people who don't know how to be single, and that's probably a problem they need to solve. For me, I don't care. I'm married for a while, but but yeah. So the parallels are infinite. I absolutely love that. And trust your intuition as well. Is this someone you want to work with? Is this someone you want to date? Usually in your gut, it says that. So I really love that you brought that up. It's something that I feel very strongly that is true in so many aspects of businesses. Moving on, let's talk about intuition for a minute, because I think that's really cool. You followed your intuition, seemed to have worked out really well. Congratulations on that. Are you still today for other things in your business following your intuition? If yes, tell us more. What are you using your intuition for?
So I'm a very logical person, very like left brained and whatnot, right? And for the longest time, it even took time to build this intuition, right? But then in a startup world, what you realize is you have no time and you have no data, and you're the sole decision maker on everything. And so literally everything runs on intuition, the company, I can say that, right? In terms of what are we prioritizing on the product? What do we want to build? Now, it's not complete like blind intuition, right? It's hundreds of discovery calls that we've done that become intuition. You just don't know how you're connecting the dots in your brains. So every day we do a prioritization call where sometimes I'm just like, no, we're building this. And sometimes it doesn't make logical sense where, no, I've heard this enough. We're going by that, right? So there's that. There's intuition on, hey, there's like 3 different things we can sell. What are we selling, right? So in sales too, like, are we doing this or waiting on things? I had to use a lot of intuition on fundraising because one big advice was, hey, co-founder breakup, don't like defer your fundraising. I was like, no, I think we can do it. This is the right time for the company to do it. The company's not going anywhere. We have YC's blessings, right? So intuition, like, yeah, I wake up every day just, I guess, dreaming about this startup, but also those dreams are basically intuitions on, all right, here's what I want to attack next.
That's so inspiring. I mean, I love that very, very much. I'm thinking to myself, listening to you, like I should wake up every morning and listen more to sort of what my intuition is doing, is telling me. And I guess everybody should do that. You ended up fundraising. Congratulations. That's absolutely exciting. Did you see, despite your intuition, did you see the fundraise being very challenging with that story? Did a lot of people have some pushbacks? Because many people are like, oh, solo founders, I'm not touching it, sort of. Did that happen to you a lot, or was it easy with your background and your growth, etc.?
It did. And it was hard because people would always say the market, the product, nobody would even say it's the co-founders, right? And then a lot of like honest friends were like, it looks so bad. And they can see you had a co-founder on YC and now you don't. And people can connect the dots, right? Nobody wants to, thanks to you, you were, I think, one of the first early investors, but people say they are the first followers and believers, but most people are not, right? And so it took a while to even like get through that mindset. And I think we were probably I spent the longest, one of the companies that took a long time to close. I was just talking to a friend, YC friend. That was a learning in itself where now, again, I'm so resilient to both, hey, how this fundraising process works. I think I had 100 plus calls. I know better in terms of how to prepare for it because now I've heard from 100 different investors. I know how they think. I am prepared for if, God forbid, another fundraising takes a long time, how to navigate it, how to, again, make decisions quickly around it. I feel like the most I grow is when when the struggle is really big. So in hindsight, all makes sense. It worked out. It puts the company in a good path where we have now enough runway to continue on our vision. But no, it wasn't easy.
This is so fascinating as well. I want to double down on that for a minute because I've been fundraising as well for my fund, Lobster Capital. And just like you, I found that fundraising is not easy. And I believe that's the way it should be. I guess it's never easy for very few people for whom it's easy, the very lucky ones. But for us mortals, it's very difficult. And something you said, that's what I want to ask you about, is it's about resilience. It's about, you keep going. And that's something that I've found with myself as well, that there's always a moment where someone says no, it's inevitable. And if you let it go to your head, like, oh my God, it's never going to work. And I've had those moments. I'm sure you've had probably everyone had those moments because we're only humans, right? And so I firmly believe that fundraising is probably 95% about your own, not being in your own head too much, and just keep going with a positive attitude and have faith in the outcome and in yourself, etc., which is what I'm trying to apply to myself as well. But I'd like to turn the question to you. I'm sure you've had similar realizations, but I want to ask you, what gave you this resilience? What helped you to go through, to go all the way? And it actually worked out. So it must have worked.
Yeah, it's funny. One thing that weirdly worked out for me is I would talk. I'm a very open book. I would vent to people about how this is so stressful, right? Random, extremely random people. And once in a while, somebody would be like, oh, 2 years ago, I've been there. Just keep pushing, one last push, and you'll save yourself 6 months. And I'm like, okay, I was just going to stop, but okay, I guess I'll keep going. And Michael Saibo did that like 3 times. He was like, you would feel better. Just keep going. Right. And every time that would happen, I'd be like, all right, time to refresh my slide decks. I guess I'm going on and on. Right. Jeff was super helpful there too. Like I've heard co-founders being like, oh, I'm the technical co-founder. This is your area. Right. He never sort of thought this is yours versus mine. It's like, all right, let's leave tech for a second. Let's focus, like both of us focus on this thing, right? So that helped a lot. End of the day, again, that intuition helped a lot because I would wake up and be like, so many people would say, like, actually investors would say, all the hot YC companies have already raised. Why do you think you can't raise, right? And that can be very disheartening too, because yes, you have all the stats on there is no correlation on the company and the fundraising, right? Like
it starts to get to your head, right?
Starts to get to your head. And what helps is being in like sales. You have to see so many no's before a yes, right? So you just start getting very good at shutting out all of those thoughts. And you're only listening to the one positive thought that somebody gave you that day. And that actually has worked out as a very good mantra for the startup too. Where it's like, okay, all the bad things, I'm not going to overthink it, which I used to do actually before running a company. And anything that's going well, let's celebrate that. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Celebrate the small wins as well. I love that very, very much.
Yeah.
I usually ask founders, what did YC bring them? I mean, it's like you've answered 10 times already with Michael, especially, and his help. I'm going to say for you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said it actually, that you wouldn't be here without YC. So it's obvious YC helped. Was there another aspect, that YC really helped you get off the ground?
I think the one that I really appreciate is that they made things very real, at least on the inside. So on the outside, you're on LinkedIn, everything is great, everybody's killing it, right? On the inside, on day one, they said, we know none of you are killing it. We've seen your customers, your applications, right? So very quickly, we went into an environment that was genuine, that allowed you to be vulnerable, and that allowed you to grow, right? With all that, what happens is, that's why we're so tight as well, is every time we're struggling, we reach out to our founder community and start to exchange ideas. We start to help each other. We angel invest in each other's companies, right? Like that goes such a long way. Like being open and real about where you are. Sometimes we talk about pivoting. Who else do we talk about pivoting, right? Only in the YC network is where we feel like this is our confident, like this is our space where we can be ourselves and, discuss things in confidence. So I think that's the one big thing. And to add on to it, now most of my friend circle is founder circle all through YC. And that helps when you're also around friends who are always traveling. Their Instagram stories look great. You are not doing that, right? You don't even have the money anymore, right? Or time, right? And so that helps a lot in terms of, again, normalizing your life because you're talking to people who are in the same boat. So I guess those are probably my highlights.
That's amazing. I mean, it shows that everyone talks about YC, why it's so great because of the partners and the founding and the demo day. And often when I ask the question, it comes back to actually it's the community. And what you said, most of your friends now are YC founders. It means that that's how strong the bonds were and are. I wanted to ask you the question earlier, how are you going to keep this thing alive? But you've answered it. You're just friends with them. And I mean, I've deleted Instagram from my phone and you should do the same. This feels so much better. But it's, in a way, I'm sort of envious that you have peers that are your friends that went exactly through the same thing at the same time. Like if I had, 10 friends who raised a fund exactly at the same time as me and we could share and being honest about what's going well, what's not going well, it would mean so much. There's no really YC for funds, though maybe there are, yeah, a little bit, some slightly similar. But anyway, I went through a fund program, but I didn't stay that close with people raising funds. I probably should have. Anyway, it made me revisit all of that while I was listening to you. I felt sort of jealous in a very good way. I'm very, very happy for you. But I was like, damn, like this sounds super exciting. So again, something you have only at YC is the community of such talented founders that you're going to keep for friends. So that's really, really, really cool. I want to ask you a little bit of, before we end our time together, we still have a couple minutes to chat, but I want to make sure you talk about sort of the vision for Just Words. What is your big goal? What are some things that are coming to Just Words that you're really, really excited about?
So the world we're looking at in the next 3 to 5 years is where everything is hyper-personalized one-on-one. And we have our own personal bots and businesses have their own bots. And so think of it as a super bot, which is orchestrating in a business across channels, across users, across different products of the business in terms of how to message to every individual users. And so if you sort of believe in that world, you're looking at bots optimizing for bots, not bots optimizing for people, right? And so that's the world where we're looking at, where we're like, okay, every company needs this bot around it that is understanding its products, its people, its users, its a sort of messaging strategy, right? And then figuring out, how do I cater to every personal bot in my ecosystem? And when we think of that world, right, we're saying marketing and sales become one thing. Everything is one-on-one communication, right? We're saying there is no concept of latency, building campaigns, figuring out what one should get after 3 months of work. We're saying everything is extremely instant in real time, right? That's the world we're excited about, right? That's how we're seeing marketing getting completely revolutionized. A lot of that on the tactical terms, what that means is the businesses are in a constant mode of strategizing and their operational work is zero. So when we talk to businesses, we say, hey, we want you to be continuously decision-making, coming up with new hypotheses. That's your skill, right? But all the operational work you spend time on, whether it's building Excel sheets, whether it's setting things up, all that stuff is what we're here to automate, right? And so that's what we're excited about. That's why companies get excited about us, because they want to see, all right, like we run, 3 experiments a quarter. Are we saying we can do 20 and then we can also understand the next best action? That's very exciting.
I want to sort of add to that maybe to some listeners, talking to bots might sound super depressing and, oh, there's no room for us humans anymore. I actually think it's not. I want to just share my vision, as probably is, I'm guessing, close to yours. When you abstract away some layer of work, it leaves humans to do some more meaningful stuff, to go a step higher. So like robots are building cars in factories. So you may be thinking, oh, we're all out of a job, it's super depressing. No, actually, it allows people to do a much more meaningful job than just screwing a screw on a car the entire day. And so, like you said, we could be all of us, humanity, only decision making. And below us, there's a level of bots talking to each other and doing the work. Just want to mention that so that people are not depressed by this. Actually, I think it's an amazing thing.
Yeah. And my contrarian view is sometimes people talk about, oh, copywriters or content designers wouldn't have a job. I think that would be the highest paid people, because what you need is somebody who can write in good English and get answers from AI, right? Who else is going to do that job? Engineers are not going to be good at it, not at least like the way we have been trained. And I've seen, like, we study the history a lot in this sense as well, right? Like how things come through, and people are very good at, like, the smartest people would understand where this world is going and sort of tune themselves to be around it, rather than thinking, oh, it's going to take our jobs. Oh, it's going to, kill everything. No, that's not how. Humans are way smarter than that.
Creative destruction, I think, is what it's called. Okay. On a more personal note, to finish this amazing chat, thank you for having taken the time. Is there a book or a quote that you could talk about, that you could share with us, that had a big or profound impact on your life? What's a book or a quote that had a profound impact on your life?
Yeah, let's see. There's a book I'm reading right now. I could talk about that, but that's just
Sure.
recent. But, okay. It's called The Tao of Pooh. Have you heard of the book?
No, no, now I
Okay,
now
so
I have. Tell me more.
it talks about Taoism, which is a way of living in the Chinese culture from the understanding of Winnie the Pooh's life, which is more Western. And it's a very philosophical book which talks about how sometimes this applies to startups. Sometimes the dumbest people are the smartest people. And the people who think they're very smart and very logical, they're doing everything right, they usually get it wrong. YC talks about this sort of like graph which says everybody is here, they think they're the smartest, but you either got to be very dumb or you got to be very smart is when you succeed. And so it's very profound because it tells me like I don't have to overthink things. I sometimes have to let it go and not try to be the smartest. And sometimes just thinking wild, thinking big, right? Like the vision we we're talking about can be smart in ways you've not imagined because your brain is not too smart to think that that can be true. So yeah, that's a fun book.
It's so interesting that you talk about. Thank you for the recommendation. There's all those memes online with this graph where the beginner thinks something that appears to be very stupid, and then in the middle, but actually the expert goes back to thinking the same thing. You've seen them. It's like, on the stock market, the beginner is like, oh, let me buy an ETF S&P 500, and then you have the middle guy who's like, I'm going to do stock picking and buy Tesla stock, whatever, and then the expert at the very end, like Warren Buffett, is like, actually just buy a S&P 500 ETF. So I thank you really for mentioning this because it's a great reminder. And you've talked about intuition as well. So you really are in this world. It speaks to me highly of sometimes the simplest things are what you need or what's the best for you. I hear so many times that YC's advice to founders is just so basic, like, hey guys, just don't die and you'll be fine. And you hear this and you're like, what? YC is the best incubator in the world? And this is their advice, like, just don't die? It's exactly what you just said. It's the simplest is usually the smartest. So I really do thank you for that. For me, it's a great reminder. And I hope for our listeners, it's a great reminder as well. If people want to find you online and find Just Words, where can they be in touch with you and reach out?
Yeah, justwords.ai is our website. You can book a meeting with me there. You can also reach out and write to me. I'm on LinkedIn very actively. So you can find me on LinkedIn. If you search, I guess, Just Words in my name, that should come up. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. I had an amazing time. So insightful for me. So thank you. Please do come back at some point.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Gabriel. It was a fun conversation. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it so much. Thank you very much. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us as well. Don't forget to subscribe for more conversations like this. And don't forget to rate us and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time on the Lobster Talks, stay bold, stay curious, and remember, those big ideas start somewhere.